Katya drove to the restaurant 1 week before her wedding to confirm the final details. The guest seating chart, menu, decorations, music, everything had to be perfect. She had spent months planning this day, and now only small details remained. The restaurant was beautiful. Warm golden lights reflected from crystal glasses, soft music played quietly in the background, and the elegant interior looked exactly like the wedding she had imagined. She walked inside holding a folder with notes and guest lists. "Hello," she called softly. No answer. The restaurant felt strangely quiet. Then suddenly a waitress appeared from around the corner. She looked nervous, almost frightened. "Quick," the waitress whispered. "Hide behind the screen in the far corner." Katya blinked in confusion. "What? Why?" "No time to explain. Please, just trust me." The waitress grabbed her hand gently but urgently. Something in her voice felt real. This was not a joke. Katya hesitated for a second, then followed her across the empty hall. Behind a decorative folding screen there was a small hidden space with boxes, chairs, and extra dishes. "Stay here," the waitress whispered. "No matter what happens, don't come out." Then she disappeared. Katya stood alone, confused and nervous. Her heart was beating faster now. "What is happening?" she whispered to herself. A few minutes later, she heard footsteps. Men entered the restaurant hall. "Is everything ready?" one of them asked. "Yes," another voice replied. "We're following the plan." Katya carefully looked through a small opening in the screen. Several men in dark suits stood near the tables. They didn't look like restaurant staff. They moved confidently, speaking quietly like they were preparing for something important. "Are the cameras off?" one man asked. "Yes. Nobody will see anything before the event starts." Katya slowly stepped back. Then she heard another voice. A voice she knew immediately. Her fiancé. "Are they here already?" he asked calmly. Katya froze. Her stomach tightened with fear. He was supposed to be at work today. Why was he here? And why were these strange people talking about a plan? "She still doesn't suspect anything?" another man asked. "No," someone answered. "She thinks this is just a wedding." A few people laughed softly. Katya covered her mouth with her hand. Her mind raced with terrible thoughts. Was this some kind of lie? A secret meeting? Had her fiancé been hiding something from her? Then more people entered the hall carrying cameras, lights, cables, and decorations. The restaurant suddenly transformed into something completely different. A stage was being built. Large screens appeared near the walls. Workers adjusted lights above the dance floor. It looked less like a wedding and more like a movie production. The waitress returned quietly behind the screen. Katya turned toward her immediately. "What is this?" she whispered nervously. The waitress took a deep breath. "It's not what you think. My fiancé is out there," Katya said. "Why is he talking like this? What is going on?" The waitress looked at her carefully. "He planned a surprise for months," she said softly. "A very big surprise." Katya stared at her in disbelief. "A surprise?" "Yes. But you arrived too early." At that exact moment, Katya heard her fiancé's voice again from the hall. "Everything must be perfect before she arrives." Katya's heart stopped for a second. She was her. And suddenly she realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. She had accidentally seen behind the scenes of her own wedding surprise. The waitress smiled nervously. You weren't supposed to know yet. Katya slowly looked through the opening again. Now she noticed flowers everywhere. Candles. Soft golden lights. Huge screens displaying romantic photos. People testing music and microphones. The entire restaurant looked magical. But her emotions were still mixed between fear and confusion. You seriously scared me, Katya whispered. I know, the waitress replied quietly. But trust me, when everything starts, it'll be worth it. Katya remained hidden behind the screen while the preparations continued outside. The restaurant slowly transformed into something unbelievable. Workers carried flower arrangements through the hall while technicians adjusted cameras and lights. Elegant music echoed softly through hidden speakers. Then the giant screen suddenly turned on. Katya gasped. Photos of her and her fiancé appeared one after another. Their first vacation together. Birthday celebrations. Funny selfies. Videos from snowy winters and summer evenings. Their entire love story filled the walls around the restaurant. Katya felt tears forming in her eyes. He did all this, she whispered. The waitress nodded. 4 months. In the center of the hall, her fiancé stood talking to the production team. Check the timing, he said seriously. The moment she walks in, the video starts. Katya laughed nervously. I thought I walked into some kind of crime meeting. The waitress laughed quietly too. Well, technically you weren't supposed to be spying on your own surprise. Suddenly someone in the hall shouted. She should arrive any minute. The waitress looked directly at Katya. You have 2 options now, she whispered. Wait for the planned entrance, or surprise everyone yourself. Katya looked toward the bright hall again. Only minutes earlier she had been terrified. Now she felt something completely different. Emotion. Love. Disbelief. She took a deep breath. No, she said softly. I'm going out now. The waitress slowly moved the screen aside. Light flooded across Katya's face as she stepped into the hall. The music stopped instantly. Everyone turned toward her. And in the middle of the room stood her fiancé, completely shocked. Katya. For several seconds nobody moved. The room became completely silent. Katya crossed her arms dramatically and stared at her fiancé. You turned my wedding into a secret mission? The room exploded with laughter. Her fiancé walked toward her nervously but smiling. I wanted it to be unforgettable. Oh, it's unforgettable already, she replied. I thought I accidentally discovered a mafia meeting. Guests and workers laughed even louder. Then he gently took her hands. I just wanted you to feel special. Katya looked around slowly. The glowing candles. The flower walls. The giant screens filled with memories. The warm golden lights above the dance floor. Everything looked like a dream. And suddenly tears filled her eyes. Not from fear anymore. From happiness. You're completely insane, she whispered softly. But you love me, he answered with a smile. Katya laughed through tears. Yes, unfortunately, I do. The music started playing again. Friends and workers began clapping. Someone shouted. Start the rehearsal. And suddenly the restaurant became alive again. Dancers entered the hall. Musicians tested instruments. Cameras moved around the room recording everything. Katya couldn't stop smiling anymore. The fear from earlier slowly disappeared completely. Now all she felt was warmth. For the first time since the wedding planning started, she stopped worrying about details. Because she realized something important. The wedding was never really about flowers, decorations, or schedules. It was about love. And in that moment, surrounded by lights and laughter, she knew this day would stay in her memory forever. But the surprises were not over yet. 3 days later, something unexpected arrived at her apartment. A small envelope without a name. Inside was an old photograph. A photo of Katya and her father.